Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and this is the fun show here at Big TV once again. Michael is sitting over there at the keyboard being nostalgic about Easter, and I want to bring you some breaking news. Tonight, Vladimir Putin has just gone on the air to issue an apology to the entire world and to the entire human race for his part in electing Donald Trump president of the United States. He explained that he thought it was a fun prank at the time, but he has come to realize what imminent danger having such an ignorant bozo in the White House poses to the entire world.
No. What's the
date? Happy April Fool's Day. Step on my line. Thank you. So, what do you got, my friend?
What do we got? We got $900 million.
$900 million.
Yeah.
That's Mike Sallin over there with $900 million.
Yeah,
I'm Arch O'Reilly. Between us is Susan Harrington.
In Nigeria, $900 million was stolen.
Nigeria wants to reclaim $900 million from J.P. Morgan because their elected officials were corrupt.
They stole the money.
Oh.
And J.P. Morgan aided and abetted it also. He helped them. They helped them.
I wouldn't bet on their collecting.
Well, they got a lot of lawyers to pay, you know. We'll see, you know.
They're probably going to get more money out of their scams than they are out of that.
Okay. All right.
So I want to advise people who are fond of things like margaritas and guacamole and avocado in their salads that they better fill up on them because Herr Domkopf in the White House is threatening to close the Mexican border, which means there won't be any guacamole, any tequila, any... Do you realize that Mexico now provides 44% of all America's fruits and vegetables?
Sounds about right.
Well, we're just going to cut them off.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't eat them anyway, the fat pig.
I mean, within 2 weeks, it'll probably cost 200,000 American jobs.
Yeah.
You know, and
all I can say is the clowns elected him.
At least a few of them are probably Trump supporters.
Yeah.
You know, but this man never thinks at all.
No, he doesn't.
He's probably incapable of thinking when you come right down to it. For example, today he says that the next census will be a total waste of time and money if it doesn't include his citizenship question, which 2 different courts have already ruled against.
Right.
Of course, he's eager to get it to his boys on the Supreme Court, but he apparently thinks somehow, I don't know what he thinks. Does he think? I mean, he doesn't seem to realize at all what the function of the census is. That it determines the distribution of representation in the country. It determines the distribution of public funds in the country. And he probably thinks that you don't count non-citizens.
That's
well, we've
right.
counted non-citizens since the beginning of the census. And in fact, to make that point clear, they determined that black folks were 3/5 of a human being for the purpose of the census. You know, and they clearly were not at that time intending for them to be voters.
Right.
But they did count towards how many reps you got.
That's okay. All right, there you go. Now, I hesitate to bring up anything that's not pertinent to this. It's really this is a big tough subject that you brought up, and I would like to stay in this area and not provide any things that you two...
How about a moment of levity?
Okay, all right. Levity, okay. You're starting, or...
No, you start. This This was your idea.
Okay.
I think this is in place of our play for today, right?
Okay, yes.
Explain that this was basically a special edition or special insert in the New York Times of today, April Fool's Day, where they published stories that were,
About 75
what shall
to
we
a-
say?
75 to 80, 100 years.
Well, actually, they're
Yeah.
All
they're-
around
they're-
1990.
somewhere around 100 years old,
Yeah.
give or take,
Okay.
and they're amusing.
Yes. We think-
And they were not written as parody; they were straight news stories
Straight
when they were
news.
published.
Okay. Okay, here it comes. This one is from 1900. Was published in the New York Times.
Your youth.
Yeah. Thank you. So I was in the Civil War, so I know about these things. Okay. Charles R. Johnson, a Bangor, Maine, registered at the J. Walker's Hotel on 561 Avenue early in September. Will you have dinner, Mr. Johnson? The clerk asked. Yes, send some pickles to my room. Okay. Later in the day, the new guest ordered a course supper, 2 courses of pickles and 1 of crackers. That's what he ordered, okay? Johnson remained in the place until yesterday, eating nothing except crackers and pickles. And he had frequent conferences with the cook, who was the only person about the hotel whom he would notice. Johnson went to the cook yesterday morning telling him he had a new recipe for pickles, which he desired to have made up. Opening his shirt, Johnson disclosed a wallet hanging around his neck by a ribbon. Around it, tape was rolled, and the ends being held in place by red wax seals. These Johnson broke, and from the wallet he took a paper and began to read. Take some cucumbers when quite green from the garden while unseen. Soak them long in salt mush, add your spices, and watch them rust. For the same days, let them lie, take them out in slices to fry. That's a dish which one sings, so good it is, it's fit for kings. Okay, now we go, it gets on. Why, that's nothing but ordinary pickles fried, the cooks told him. At this, Johnson became angry and retired to his room. To the proprietor went the cook. He's that crazy, said the cook, that he wants to spoil good pickles by frying them. Well, the proprietor spoke to the policeman on the post, Baxter of the Tenderloin Station House. A Bellevue Hospital ambulance later took Johnson away on the grounds that he was afflicted with dementia. For a time he was unwilling to go, inquiring defiantly, have they got any pickles over there? This is the mental hospital. Whole vats of them, he was told. Johnson, smiling broadly, climbed into the ambulance. And that's how they got him out of the hotel.
Do you think in
Fried pickles.
1900 the kitchen made pickles
Yeah.
instead of just buying pickles?
Well, this guy liked pickles. It's obvious.
Fried pickles have probably had a period of time where they were very popular.
Well, they had fried tomatoes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, green fried tomatoes.
Yeah, green
Or
fried.
fried green tomatoes.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Can't remember the title
I know. I was gonna say,
of that movie.
But I liked I had those fried tomatoes at one point. Somebody
Yeah.
I knew made them for me.
Well, now they fry ice cream. So what do you?
I know.
It's big.
All right, I have one here from January 12th, 1927. Not quite as old. Fergus Falls, Minnesota. Gus Comstock, coffee-drinking pride of Minnesota, today again gulped his way into the national championship, downing 85 cupfuls, 8-ounce size, in 7 hours and 15 minutes. as an aside, I can't believe people waited around for almost 8 hours to find out what this was. Imagine if Nathan's hot dog contest took 8 hours. Anyway, Gus won back the title from H.A. Street of Amarillo, Texas, whose 71 Cup record recently had bettered Comstock's old mark of 62. Comstock, a barbershop porter, was cheered by a crowd that jammed a hotel where Gus imbibed the coffee. The hotel paid the tab. Near the end, Comstock's gulps were somewhat labored. When he stopped for a rest, a physician examined him and pronounced him to be in, quote, pretty good shape, except for a slight fever. But the rest threw Gus off his stride, and he quit short of the 100-cup goal he had set.
Bad.
Comstock took his coffee with and without sugar and cream. In the first hour, he consumed 15 cups of the beverage straight. All told, he drank 21 1/4 quarts, more than 5 gallons of coffee.
I mean, can you imagine all that coffee? And the caffeine would have you buzzing, wouldn't it?
He lay down and took a nap a week and a half
I was
later.
going to say, taking that win. Oh my goodness.
I'm going to say something, but I'm not going to say it. Okay. So
Well, you're right. Half of that time he was in the bathroom.
Yeah, I was going to
I was
say.
going to say that. He fell asleep there, but it didn't matter. Okay.
You got one there, Sue?
All right. Would you want to hear about the man who's laid in bed for 10 years or the dead wife?
I want to hear about the dead wife.
Okay, so this wife returned after having fine funeral, declaring that the city falsely, this is from March 15th, 1904.
Okay.
Declaring that the city falsely notified him that his wife was dead and saddled him with the expense of a funeral for a strange woman. Ianganco Valente, who lives at 311 East 16th Street, has filed a bill for $250 against the city. The Auditing Bureau of the Finance Department now has it in charge. Valente is an Italian, and about 6 weeks ago, he quarreled with his wife, Angelica, over the way she cooked macaroni. As a result of quarreling, the wife left Valente's home, declaring she would rather die than return. When Valente's rage had cooled, he became worried over his wife and started a search for her, reporting her loss to the police. He gave a careful description of the woman, and finally, on being notified that the body of a woman answering the description was at the morgue, he went there, accompanied by his 2-year-old daughter. Oh, yeah. He identified the clothing of the dead woman as belonging to his wife, but when shown the body, he declared it had been changed. They all change after death, he says, the morgue keeper declared. This woman was better looking than my wife, Valente says, he declared. Death beautifies them all, the morgue man is said to have replied.
There was an undertaker who loved his job.
Yeah. Smothering his doubts, Valente says he had the body brought to his home. And then, in response to the old request made by his wife, got out the wedding dress used by Mrs. Valente and had the strange woman attired in it. The funeral was held and Valente footed the bill. He's declared. Notice of the event was published in the Italian papers.
Finally.
And the real Mrs. Valente, reading it, started post-haste for her home. Valente, on arriving home, discovered the real Mrs. Valente rummaging about for her wedding dress.
Oh.
What has become of it? She demanded when Valente entered. Why, I buried you in it 3 days ago, Valente in surprise replied. Real trouble followed this.
Yeah.
Real trouble. Real trouble followed this. And when Valente had satisfied himself, he had to satisfy himself that it was his real wife who stood before him. and that he had buried the wrong woman, he could only restore peace by promising to buy his wife another wedding dress, just like the one in which the strange woman had been buried.
To store in tissue paper for another
Yeah.
50 years.
Yeah. Now, he demands that the city pay him $100, which he spent for the funeral of the wrong woman, $40 for wages lost through grief and because of illness that followed the shock of finding his wife alive, and $110 for the bridal costume, which he had placed on the corpse, and which sum of he deserves to buy a new gown for the real Mrs. Valenti. He asserted that he never would have accepted the body of the woman whose identity is still unknown, unless the morgue keeper, and that's the term they use, the morgue keeper,
Crypt keeper.
yeah, had forced him to believe that it was the body of his wife.
Can you believe,
Yes.
just thinking back, this was 1900 what?
I think it says 1904. We've got a,
In 1904, a very nice funeral
Right.
cost less than a wedding dress?
yeah.
That's not bad.
It's just interesting historical
Yeah.
thing that sits there. Now, on local news, today they began the great experiment with electronic scooters in Brookline. Been turned down by most rational cities around, but not Brookline.
Well, we need the money.
Well, you know, Mr. Wazinski, who was very proud to be the first customer at the pot shop,
Pot shop.
and obviously has been enjoying his purchases quite a lot.
If he
He's very
knows-
much in favor of this.
He knows.
That's why he's in favor of the scooters.
That's what I'm saying.
Because he's
yeah.
enjoying his
Yes,
purchase.
Put
right.
a saddle on one of these scooters.
Huh?
You know that? He put a saddle on one of them.
Saddle?
Well, he was smoking. He can do things.
Anyway, I'm told it's supposed to be an experiment. There's 200 of these scooters now that you can, if you have an application on your phone, if you don't happen to have a phone, you're out of business.
Okay.
But if you have an application on your phone, you can rent these things for a certain amount down and then a certain amount a minute on the things. They don't provide helmets.
No.
Helmets are apparently not required. They didn't get out of the parking lot before they had their first injury sufficient to call the EMTs on the thing. Great experiment, folks.
How badly wounded, injured was this
Well,
kid?
the person was damaged, bleeding from the head.
Oh,
I don't know what
okay.
the.
But I thought I saw on TV where they showed the racks of them, that they were the scooters and that there was a helmet hanging from it. No?
No,
Oh,
they're not providing helmets.
Well, that was
And on the other part of the thing is that there are two upcoming meetings in the next short period of time on the renaming of the devotion school. I don't know if people know, but they've appointed a,
They are going to actually rename the school?
huh?
They are actually going to rename the school?
Yeah, they've already temporarily renamed it the Coolidge Corner School. Blah. But they've appointed a panel of students
good. Very
to
good.
pass on what the new name of the school should be. I mean, after all, if you're going to make a childish decision, best to get children to make it. But these children are going to present their finalists on April 3rd at the Devotion School in the evening, and on April 11th at the main library at 6 o'clock at night. So
Okay.
if you have any interest in the future of the Devotion School, you might be interested to attend those things.
You think that lawyer Avenatti would be interested in this?
I think he appeared in court today, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
He appeared in court in California, I think, on his embezzlement charges.
That's embezzlement.
And then he's got to
Extor-
appear at some point
extortion.
in New York
Yeah.
on his extortion charges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he'd take
A
this-
great American.
All right, so what's going to happen with you think they'll find a name for the school?
Well, I assume they'll find a name for,
Well, if
for the school.
they're anything like a friend of mine in Rochester, had the school and they had the kids vote. Should they name it Frederick Douglass or Roberto Clemente? And they had this whole thing on the electoral process, and the kids voted, and it came out.
And the kids on each side presented their arguments
Yeah.
for them.
Well, I
and
mean,
stuff.
well, they just voted. You know, they who these different people were, what they did, and the majority of the children voted for the name Roberto Clemente School. So I said, oh, so my friend says, and if you want to visit me at the Frederick Douglass, you can. Because they just went against what the kids said anyway.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh,
They were the majority of the kids, they all wanted to call it the Roberto Clemente,
So
and they
you-
named it the Frederick Douglass.
So you make a whole process, you involve the children in them, you're trying to tell them something about civics and government and everything else, and then you just slap them backhand across the face at
Well-
the end of it. Every single administrator in that school district should be fired instantly.
But you know what though? It's a terrific civics lesson because that's what happens. The people vote a certain way and they get slapped back.
This
This was a number of years ago. So
President
I can't
Trump
believe
said
it.
everything is rigged against me. You know that.
everything was rigged for him. That was the
Well, then after he won, it was.
that was the truth of the matter.
Yeah, you're right.
But no, I mean that's a shame. But
Okay.
in any case, I personally, well, my first choice would be the Edward Devotion School.
Okay.
147 years it was the Edward Devotion
I still
School.
like that name, and my kids went there, and you probably, your kids.
Yeah, I was president of the PTO there.
So,
I was
yes, there you
president
are.
of the
Parents
building
Teachers
committee.
Organization. Yeah.
But so that's my first choice. That's not going to happen
Right.
because it's politically incorrect.
minute.
It puts me in mind
Wait a minute. About
of Spiro T. Agnew.
Great America.
Spiro T. Agnew's famous statement, which is faded from history, the nattering nabobs of negativity. And that's what these people are, the nattering nabobs of negativity.
But it's
In any
PC.
case, my next choice is Taylor. You remember Taylor? 40 years principal of the Edward Devotion School. 40 years. But I've already been told it can't be a white person and it can't be a man.
Oh, there you are.
You know, that's the criteria. Can't be a white person, can't be a man.
Well,
Welcome to America.
okay.
So my
So much for diversity and discrimination, or fighting against discrimination. I mean, it's a different kind. It's reverse discrimination.
Wait a minute.
Of course it is.
Why can't they name the school is so big? Why can't they have two different parts of the school?
given several names.
Yeah, a couple, 2 or 3 names.
In any case, so my fallback position, my fallback candidate is Phyllis Wheatley.
Oh, very good.
Because
very,
she lived here in Brookline, right?
I don't think so.
I know. I don't
think she
I
was
don't know.
Cambridge.
Cambridge. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh?
I'm being sarcastic.
Oh, okay. No, but
Thank you.
Phyllis Wheatley at least has some place in history, you know. Phyllis Wheatley was the second most famous American in Europe in 1775 and 76, second only to
I
Benjamin
was going to say to
Franklin.
Ben.
Okay.
Good old Benny.
Huh?
That's a good old Benny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Uncle Ben.
Be careful. Yeah. Go ahead.
Be careful.
I was going to say, be careful of Uber drivers. That's what I was going to say.
Well, I've always been against Uber anyway. I mean, I don't think Uber should be allowed. If I ruled the world, Uber would be banned. But it's been a bad week for Uber. But you'd say a bad month, but Uber seems to have a bad month every month.
Every month. Yes.
So we've got a local guy, Uber driver for 2 or 3 days, now accused of raping his passenger. I don't understand. He's from Uganda.
yeah.
I suspect he doesn't have a U.S. driver's license, doesn't Uber screen their people at all. And then we have the terribly sad situation in South Carolina where this young lady was waiting for an Uber ride. She saw a car that looked like an Uber.
Uber.
She got in. She never got out alive.
Never.
And one of the problems is if you get in the wrong car, because of the child-safe devices,
Yeah.
they can lock the back doors on you.
And, they
And the
did.
window.
He did.
So if you ever call an Uber, even if you think you're in the safest neighborhood around and the person behind the wheel looks all right, my strong suggestion is wait till they say your name.
That's it.
And interestingly enough, these days it doesn't just have to be an Uber, because our local cab company, Bay State Cab, has given up painting or putting decals on their cars. So when you call a Bay State Cab, some Prius pulls up with no markings whatsoever. You have no way of knowing whether it's a cab, except you're looking to see a meter.
Yeah. What's the advantage and disadvantage between a cab and an Uber? What's the
Well,
A little cheaper.
you can I don't know, you get back and forth. There's many more Ubers. Not a single Uber driver is making a living.
No.
But there's tons of them, so they tend to come quick. I don't know who's right as to whether they're more expensive or less expensive. Frequently they're less expensive, but if it's a busy time of day, they can surcharge you 3 or 4 times
True.
the normal fare.
Okay.
And you can do it on your smartphone. I don't know. It's the thing. It's in.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand that, but I'm thinking, the cab companies, they don't have it where you can summon a cab from your smartphone.
Well, I'm sure they do these days, but there again, I'm never a threat to use Uber because I'm hoping to make it through life without ever owning a smartphone.
Oh, okay.
So that I'm disqualified.
Well, there's a couple of
from taking
things.
them.
Not to
What do you got on your list, sir?
the president got a beating on some of the things that he's tried to push through. He exceeded his authority when he reversed the bans on offshore drilling in vast parts of the Arctic Ocean and dozens of canyons in the Atlantic Ocean. And that was U.S. judge said he restored Obama-era restrictions.
But Michael, he doesn't even care because he is counting on the fact that every single one of these reversals will end up in the Supreme Court where Neil and what's the other guy's name? Where his pet judges will reverse it. I mean, everything that we have spent our entire lives
True.
thinking that the Supreme Court would ultimately protect us against is going to be reversed.
Yeah.
Look at the law they just passed in Georgia.
Yeah,
Abortions in Georgia are now outlawed
yeah.
once a fetal heartbeat can be detected, which can be as early as 4 weeks and always 6 weeks. There's a lot of women don't know they're pregnant for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, but they'd never have passed that, and the Republican governor there never would have signed that, except they want to rush it to the Supreme Court where Gorsuch and Kavanaugh can say, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we still got a minute, and the 2 federal judges blocked Trump's Obamacare tweaks and the work requirement for Medicaid people. They have to be working to get the Medicaid.
Yes, but that'll be overturned probably in a matter of weeks.
But at least the judges at this point,
There's still some judges out there that these criminals have not appointed.
that's
But the fact of the matter is they've appointed enough judges. He's already announced his replacement for Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
yeah.
And this right-wing ideologue is like 32 years old. Once he gets her on there, she'll be there for the rest of my children's lives.
Yeah, that's about it.
Anyway, we got to say goodnight.
We got to say good night and good luck to Mueller and his report.
Yes, good luck to us all. We will see you same time next week here on The Fun Show at Big TV.
And thank you for listening and watching. Okay.
Enjoy.